Welcome back to Pro Shop. It's Pete here, Anika's here. She's helping me film today because today is D-Day for this car. It is delivery day. We are taking this to the owner and dropping it off to him. So it was ready to go. I thought it was ready to go, but there was sort of a little problem with the distributor. I said in the last video, and I did change the battery and it did help with it, but it still wasn't running right. So I gave it to my local mechanic and he checked it over. He is the best with old cars and he said the distributor was terrible. So he chucked a new one in, fixed the choke and everything, and now it starts like a dream. 2 pumps to the throttle. Look at that. So yeah, that was the last thing to do. We took it for a run, it drives great. So we're gonna drop this off today. And then the next car, this F truck. So I had finished this and the last thing to do was wait for the brake test. And that happened last week and it failed. So it didn't fail the actual braking, it just couldn't get a good read on the meter. And he says it was just too bumpy and it was shaking the machine. So what I should have done was change the shocks before I did the brake test, but you know, I didn't know that they needed replacing. So I pulled them out, they were stuffed. So we put some heavy duty shocks in there. Now the thing is great. So I booked the brake test in and that'll be done probably the next few weeks and that'll be registered and can go. While I were waiting, one weekend, Anika and we did strip the Sprinter and I wrapped the line underneath because that was really bugging me. The car was about 99% complete. I just had to finish the exhaust, but underneath was never really properly done. And seeing that we've got the tools and stuff to do it here, we stripped the car, painted it, and now it's ready to go back together. Which we'll tell you in a minute what's happening. There's big things happening. And now onto the FJ. So this is, I should really introduce this car because this came to my workshop about 7 years ago and I worked on it on and off. It did come from another fabricator and it was there for about 6 years. Getting a lot of the work done. They fitted the motor, did some stuff, and then it's kind of come to a halt. So the owner took it to mine and I redid a few things that the other fabricator did, but you know, just got it, a lot of the metal work done. And it went off to paint, I think mid 2019. And it was at paint for about 8 months. And then sort of COVID hit and everything shut down. So the paint got finished and then the owner took it home and it just sat in his shed. So I think last year he approached me and we penciled it in. So now it's here for the final fit up. And as you can see, 5 litre, it's got a turbo 350 and a 9-inch diff in the back and aircon, power steering, all the cool stuff. The owner really just wanted an old looking car, sort of original, but he wanted a V8, power steering and aircon. That were the main things he wanted, and he wanted to be able to service it himself. So sort of off the shelf parts that you can get. So that's what we're doing right now. So we're stuck into that. And well, should I say the big news? I think I should say the big news. We are moving again. We are getting forced out of where we are. We really have 1 month. They gave us 2 months to pack up and get out. Well, actually, they gave us our rent increase, which was astronomical. Like a lot of people in Sydney or Australia at the moment, the rent is just crazy. And I knew there was a rent rise coming, and I calculated what the lease said, 5%, and it went up 50%. So we weren't ready for that, and we were all set up, you know, 2 hoists in, got the pallet racking all bolted down, everything was all good, and they come and screwed us. We were just out of the lease because we did 2-year lease, and I don't know if this was their plan. They planned it really well. They really screwed us, and yeah, they didn't even offer us any lube. It just hurt. It hurt, it really did hurt. So I've been toying with telling everyone this. Anika says you have to tell this story. I know a lot of people are going through this right now, but I don't know if they see us as a YouTuber. Maybe they watch our videos and go, oh, this guy's got heaps of money, let's get it off him. But basically, no, there's not much money in what we do. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm a fabricator that likes to put videos out on YouTube. That's the difference. So we are packing up this coming month and moving. We really don't know where we're going just yet. We were contemplating actually closing the doors because we will do a proper video about the details, I think, about why we have to move and stuff like that. We'll go through the numbers and stuff because they are shocking to see. But yeah, we'll do that in another video because you come here for cars, not to hear my problems and politics and all that stuff. Because as I said, everyone's going through this right now. Anyway, let's just get stuck into this. All right, as you can see, I have done a fair bit of assembling on this. So I'll take you back to the start when I got it, and it was still on the dolly when it came from paint. So the first thing I had to do was take it off the dolly and get it on its wheels. Because we're moving, I want this on its wheels as soon as possible. So the diff, well, it had been sitting around for about 5 or 6 years, and even though the housing was painted, the diff center wasn't, and that started to rust up. So I cleaned that up, sanded the housing back, pulled the axles out and primed it, ready for paint. But first I had to do were wire brush the leaf springs. They had seen better days. So clean them back, use a little bit of water on there just so to stop the dust, because I don't want to breathe that stuff in, even though I do wear a mask. So I got them all done, hung them up, and then used the POR surface paint, which you can paint directly over rust. You can just paint it on with a brush, but I like to use just low pressure on the gun. It just kind of seems to it's a lot quicker, and it just seems to get in all the nooks and crannies. So I did that, and I was waiting for some slipper pads because the old slipper pads were worn, and while I was waiting for them, I went on with assembling the front. Now, what happened when this was away? This was away for 6 years, and this was this is a 304, but it was injected. But the owner wanted sort of a period correct car. He wanted carby. We had a turbo 700 on the back, and even though I would have preferred a 4-speed, the owner wanted a period correct car, so he went with a 3-speed. So it's a turbo 350 now. And it's a shorter box, but I had a little bit of a problem fitting it. I thought I was just going to put this back into the car nice and easy. I built a cradle for it to sit on while it was away. These are pretty easy to pull out because the chassis rails in these, well, the front rails, they're wide enough for a V8 with the headers on to drop out. So it makes it easier to pull in and out. But I had a few little problems with the gearbox because it was shorter. The gearbox cross member was in the wrong spot. I had to adjust that, had to make a new one of those. But then the gearbox was actually hitting on the tunnel a tiny little bit. So I needed to notch that out. And all in all, this was a bit of a nightmare. I had to pull the motor in and out numerous times. I kind of lost count of how many times I pulled this motor out. And then when I finally got it in position, I could fit the new engine mounts on. So the old engine mounts we weren't happy with. The mount themselves wasn't too bad, but the tags that were on the cross member were only made out of 3mm, and for me that's just too small. So I cut them off and fit just standard 5-litre Commodore mounts. So one thing that the customer really wants, he wants this thing to be like serviceable himself. He wants to be able to go down to the local auto parts store and just get replacement filters and engine mounts or anything. He doesn't want it custom, doesn't have to make stuff if it ever fails. So that's why we went this route. Okay, it's taken me a while to get to this position, but I finally got the motor sitting where I wanted it to be. I've got some 10mm packers just holding it in either side of the sump around the cross member there. And I've already notched one of these brackets in, and I'm gonna weld that in, but I want to do the other side first. So what I did is just set it in position with a threaded rod running through that bolt hole and this bolt hole, so it's lined up where I want it to. And then I will just, on the back side of that, just put a mark, and then I can just trim it off to that, and it should then be the right height, and I can just slot it into there, put the bolt in and tack it in place. All right, so here you can see where the gearbox was hitting on the floor. So that was the big problem why I had to cut it out. It's already primed, and because I did that and also moved the gearbox crossmember forward because of the shorter transmission, I now have to paint this again with a wrap liner. And lucky I had one tin left over from painting my Sprinter only 2 weeks ago underneath. So I've got one cartridge left, so I'm gonna go over and do the whole thing again because there were parts that were missed. You know, it was on the trolley here. The painter couldn't get up in there. A lot of painters wouldn't have a hoist. I know a few painters that have painted the cars and it's in the booth on the floor, and it's kind of sometimes hard to get up into these spots in here where it stays a little dry. We're looking good. Okay, touched up all the bits that were missed. Couldn't even tell. Okay, back on the FJ today, and I want to get the radiator fitted. So it sits in this little recess that I made, and I've got to unbolt all the front because it comes in from this way. The one thing I want to just touch on is tape. Not all tape is created equal. So when I finished this car and sent it out to paint, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I'll try and find the date when it left. I wrapped everything up and I used the good 3M green tape. So this is a Scotch brand, still 3M. Okay, 233. There's a few different types, not the ones from the hardware store. You need the one from the I get them from the paint supplier, auto paint supplier, and it is a little bit different to the one that you get from the hardware. Not sure what it is, but I've just found that this stuff is so much better for wrapping up parts that are going to be wrapped up for a long time. So if I'm going to tape up, in fit up stage, if I'm going to tape up the sill so I don't scratch it, I'll be using this tape. If it's going to be on there for more than, I reckon, a month, I would use this. Anything less, just the standard tapes there. It's either the yellow, the white, or the orange. They kind of change, and there's purple, they change a fair bit, but the green one never changes. And this is the perfect example. I'll show you why it's better. So when this arrived from another workshop, this car arrived, it had the white tape on it. And you can see here on the side. So this has been on here for 5 years. I don't know how long this has been on here for. When it arrived, it was already like this. I tried to start peeling it off, and the glue is, well, it's just stuck, and the paper comes off and it leaves the glue behind. It just makes a mess. So you can see the difference of this one. It still comes off. Look at that. Doesn't even leave any residue. So I knew this day was going to come, that I was going to have to clean this off, because it was like this, as I said, years ago. And I'm just gonna have to soak it with wax and grease, probably some thinners will get it off. But I've got to clean all this all around here. See, it's not even, doesn't even want to come off, it just breaks. Yeah. So yeah, tape. Well, there we go. It's a pain in the ass. My fingers are all sticky. So something as simple as a different tape. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but it could have saved, well, you know, half an hour to an hour of cleaning. All right, that fits nicely, as it should. Okay, now I'll put this nose back on. One thing I had to do here was flatten out this part of the firewall for the booster, just so it sat flat, otherwise it was going to be shooting up, and well, then the brake fluid isn't sitting right in the reservoir. Right, got the lowering blocks in, and I'm very happy with the height of this. That's what the owner wanted. Didn't want it too low. This is going to be perfect. Plenty of clearance with the exhaust. Got all the back in, so the only really thing that's going to affect the weight now is the fuel tank, but that's not going to be too bad. But all the timber is in, so this is sort of where it will sit. Okay, now back onto the interior. Got all the door seals. They've just arrived yesterday, so I'll start putting all that back together. And just the little odds and ends. Start fitting all that, put the aircon to go in, and then I'll probably start dynamiting, doing all that cool stuff on the inside. I like this fuel cap because you can just push the nozzle straight in. Don't have to undo it. I don't like where it is though, because it limits where the fuel tank can be. And I did make the fuel tank for this. It's only small. It's about, I think I worked it out to be about 66 litres, which isn't, it's probably just borderline big enough for a V8. But I like to put the fuel tank in the back here, like with most of the utes that I build. But yeah, this is where the filler neck was when I got the car, so I left it there. All right, that's probably about it for this video. I will wrap that up now. I've got a lot of packing to do. I've got to pull the pallet racking down. I've got to pull the hoist down. It's just a nightmare. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Where we're going, actually, it's going to be a surprise because things are actually moving forward in a big way. Something I've been wanting to do for a while. We're actually going to be doing it. So I'll let you know more about that in the coming weeks. The next video will be probably the exhaust on the FJ, which will probably be the last video in this workshop. Then the new things are coming. So stick around for that. Hope you enjoy it. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.